I first met in person with Mary E. in the summer of 2007. I had arranged with her husband of 15 years, Terence, to see her for an interview. Mary had initially agreed, since I was not a newsman but rather an amateur writer gathering information for an early college assessment, and, if all went according to plan, some pieces of fiction. We scheduled the interview for a particular weekend when I was in Chicago on unrelated business, but at the last moment Mary changed her mind and locked herself in her couple's bedroom, refusing to meet with me. For half an hour I sat with Terence as we camped outside the bedroom door. I listened and taken notes while he attempted fiercely to calm his wife. The things Mary said made little sense but fit in with the pattern I was expecting. Though I could not see her, I could tell from her voice that she was crying, and more often than not her objections to speaking with me centered around an incoherent diatribe of her dreams, her nightmares. Terence apologised profusely when he ceased the exercise, and I did my best to take in the stride. Recall that I wasn't a reporter in search of a story, but merely a curious man in search of information. Besides, I thought at the time, I could perhaps find another similar case if I put my mind and resources to it. Mary E. was the sysub for a small Chicago-based bulletin board system in 1992, when she first encountered Smile.jpg, and her life changed forever. She and Terence had been married for only 5 months. Mary was of an estimated 400 people who saw the image when it was posted as a hyperlink of the BBS, though she is the only one who has spoken openly about the experience. The rest have remained anonymous or perhaps dead. In 2005, when I was only in 10th grade, Smile.jpg was first brought to my attention by gregarian interest in web-based phenomena. Mary was the most often cited victim of what is sometimes referred to as Smile.dog. Smile.jpg is reputed to display what caught my interest, other than the obvious macro elements of the cyber legend, my prolifically towards such things, was the sheer lack of information, usually to the point that people don't even believe it exists other than as a rumour or a hoax. It is unique because, though the entire phenomenon centers on a picture file, that file is nowhere to be found on the internet. Certainly many photo-manipulated cinematic horror live on the web, showing up with most frequently on sites and images boards such as 4chan, particularly the -xi focused paranormal subreddit. It is suspected these are fakes because they do not have the effect that the true Smile.jpg is believed to have, namely sudden onset temporal lobe epilepsy and acute anxiety. This purported reaction in the viewer is one of the reasons phenomenon like Smile.jpg is regarded with such disdain, since it is particularly absurd. So depending on whom you ask, the reticence to acknowledge Smile.jpg's existence might be as just out of fear as it is out of disbelief. Neither Smile.jpg nor Smile.dog is mentioned anywhere in Wikipedia, but the website features articles on such other perhaps more scandalous stock site as Hello.jpg or 2 Girls 1 Cup. Any attempt to create a page pertaining to Smile.jpg is summarily deleted by any of Encyclopedia's many admins. Encounters with Smile.jpg are of the stuff of legend. Mary E's story is not unique. There are unverified rumours of Smile.jpg showing up in the early days of Usenet, and even one persistent tale that in 2002 a hacker flooded the forums of humour and satire websites, summing off with deluge of Smile.jpg pictures, rendering almost half of the forum users at the time epileptic. It is said that in the mid to late 90s, Smile.jpg circulated on Usenet as an attached of a chain with the subject line, "Smile! God loves you!" Yet despite the huge exposure, these stunts would generate. There are very few people who admit to having experienced any of them, and with no trace of the file or any link that has been discovered. Those who claim to have seen Smile.jpg often weakly joke that they were far too busy to save a copy of the picture to their hard drive. However, all alleged victims offer the same description of the photo: a dog-like creature, usually depicted as similar to a Siberian husky, illuminated by the flash of the camera, sits in a dim room. The only background detail that is visible being a hand extending from the darkness from the near left side of the frame. The hand is empty, but is usually described as beckoning. Of course, much attention is given to the dog, or dog creature, as some victims are more certain than others about what they claim to have seen. The muzzle of the beast is repeatedly split in a wide grin, revealing two rows of very wide, very sharp, very straight, very human-looking teeth. This is, of course, not a description given immediately after viewing the picture, but rather a recollection of the victims who claim to have seen the picture endlessly repeated in their minds during the time they are, in reality, having epileptic fits. These fits are reported to continue intermittently, often while the victim is asleep, resulting in very vivid and disturbing nightmares. These may be treated with medication, though in some senses it is more effective than others. Mary E., I assured, was not effective medication. That was why after my visit to her apartment in 2007, I sent out faders to several folklore and urban legend oriented news groups, websites, and mailing lists, hoping to find names of supposed victims to Smile.jpg who felt more interested in talking about this experience. For the time, nothing happened, and at length I forgot completely about my pursuits since I had begun my freshman year of college and was quite busy. Mary contacted me via email, however, near the beginning of March 2008. Dear Mr. L, I am incredibly sorry about my behaviour last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that was no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to act out as I did. I realised that I could have handled the situation more decorously. However, I hope you will forgive me, and this time I was afraid. You see, for 15 years I have been haunted by Smile.jpg. Smile.dog comes into me in my sleep every night. I know that sounds silly, but it is true. There is an inevitable quality about my dreams, my nightmares, that makes them completely unlike any real dreams I have ever had. I do not move and do not speak. I simply look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene from that horrible picture. I see the beckoning hand, and I see Smile.dog. It talks to me. It is not a dog, of course, though I am not quite sure what it really is. It tells me that it will leave me alone if I only do what it asks. What I must do is spread the word. That is how it phrases it demands, and I now know exactly what it means. It wants me to show it to someone else. And I could. The week after my incident, I received in the mail a Millennia envelope with no return address. Inside was only 3.5-inch floppy disk-like. Without having to check, I knew precisely what it was. And I could. I knew precisely what was on it. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to some stranger, a co-worker. I could even show it to Terence, as much as the idea disgusted me, and what would happen to them? Well, if Smile.dog kept his word and I could sleep, yet if it lied, what would I do? And who was to say something worse would not come to me if it did as a creature asked? So I did nothing for 15 years. So I kept the diskette hidden among most things. Every night for 15 years, Smile.dog has come to me in my sleep and demanded that I spread the word. For 15 years I have stood strong, though there have been hard times. Many of my fellow victims of the BBS road, where I first encountered Smile.jpg, stopped posting. I heard them I heard some of them had committed suicide. Others remain completely silent, simply disappearing off the face of the web. They are the ones I worry about the most. I sincerely hope you will forgive me, Mr. Ale, but last summer when you contacted me and my husband about the interview, I was near the breaking point. I decided I was going to give you the floppy diskette, and did not care if Smile.dog was lying or not. I wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone I had no connection with, and though I know I would not feel sorrow when you took the diskette as part of your research and sealed your fate. But you arrived. I realized what I was doing was plotting to ruin your life. I could not stand the thought, and in fact, I still cannot. I am ashamed, Mr. Earl, and I hope that this warning will dissuade you from further investigations of Smile.jpg. You may in time encounter someone who is, if not weaker than I, then wholly more depraved, someone who has not hesitated to follow .jpg's order. Stop while you are still whole. Sincerely, Mary E. Terence contacted me later that month with news that his wife had killed herself while cleaning up the various things she'd left behind, closing the email accounts and like that. She happened upon the message above. He was a man in shambles. He kept as he told me to listen to his wife's advice. He found the diskette he relieved and burned it until it was nothing but a stinking pile of blackened plastic. The part that most disturbed him, however, was how the diskette had hissed as it melted, like some sort of animal, he said. I will admit that I was a little uncertain about how to respond to this, as I thought perhaps it was a joke, with the couple basically playing with the situation in order to get a raise out of me. A quick check of several Chicago newspapers, online obituaries, however, proved that Mary E. was indeed dead. There was, of course, no mention of suicide in the article. I decided that, for a time at least, I would not further pursue the subject of Smile.jpg, especially since I had finals coming up in the end of May. But the word has always tested us. Almost a full year after I returned from my mysterious interview with Mary E., I received another email to gmail.com from Glazhair82. Subject: Smile. Hello. I found your email address through a mailing list. Your profile said you're interested in Smile Dog. I saw it. It is not as bad as everyone says. I have sent it to you here. Just spreading the word. Smiley face. The fine line chilled me to the bone. According to my email client, there was one attached called Naturally Smile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely a fake, I imagine. Even if it wasn't, I was never wholly convinced of Smile.jpg's particular powers. Mary's accountant had shooken me, yes, but she was probably mentally imbalanced anyway. After all, how could a simple image do what Smile.jpg was said to have accomplished? What sort of creature was it that could break one's mind with only the power of the eye? And if such things were completely absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I download the image, if I looked at it, and Mary turned out to be correct, a Smile.dog came to my dreams demanding I spread the word, what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary had, fighting against the urge to give it until I die? Or would I simply spread the word, eager to put to rest? And if I chose to let her out, how could I do it? Whom would I burden in turn? If I went through my earlier intention to write a short article about Smile.jpg, I could attach it as evidence, and anyone who read the article, anyone who was interested, would be affected, and even assuming the Smile.jpg attachment to the email was genuine. Would I be carapace enough to save it myself in that manner? Could I spread the word? Yes. Yes, I could.